Riot finally fixed Champions Queue. So as we all know, Riot launched Champions Queue back in February as a more competitive training ground for emerging talent and professional players. Champions Queue was very quickly met with harsh criticism from pro players and the community alike, and was basically abandoned by a lot of players until participating Worlds teams arrived in North America. This was a huge boost to Champions Queue as the community was excited to see how international players such as Faker and Chovy would fare against one another in basically a polished solo queue setting. Since the resurgence of Champions Queue, Riot has since revised the rules surrounding Champions Queue entry and participation. Riot Whoopley, product lead for Champions Queue, posted this on Reddit. Strap in because there's a bit of text here and we're going to skip the intro, so we start at game quality. Champions Queue has always actively evaluated its players' performances, adjusting access when necessary. Champions Queue Worlds is no different. Prior to the tournament, we made it clear to all players that this would be a step up and that Champions Queue Council would be aggressively addressing reports in order to keep the game quality high. Since Champions Queue Worlds went live, we've gotten feedback from pro players that game quality is more inconsistent than they'd like. After consulting the council, we intend to make the following access adjustment ahead of the group stage. In addition to the minimum required of Grandmaster, amateur players who have access to Champions Queue must have also reached Challenger at least once this season to retain access. We believe this change will provide a meaningful boost in game quality for the pros, while allowing the majority of amateur players to remain on the server. The Champions Queue Council will continue to monitor and review reports to remove any players as is necessary. Expanded access. When we launched Champions Queue Worlds, the access list consisted of original Champions Queue, which was current LCS players, recent ex-LCS players, example Double Lift Pobelter, current LCS Academy players, LCS amateur players as qualified by the Proving Ground circuit, and current LLA players. Champions Queue Worlds will be all competing Worlds players, and bootcamping players from an active roster in a Worlds qualifying league. Based on the recent community conversation as well as feedback from Champions Queue Worlds participants, it's become clear that these categories are not inclusive of everyone who would be a good fit for Champions Queue Worlds. While we think the current Champions Queue population is healthy in terms of competitive players, we also view Champions Queue Worlds as an opportunity to be more experimental with access. As such, we're amending this list to include new access criteria. Additional players may be admitted to Champions Queue Worlds if they are a former pro player from a Worlds qualifying league, example LCS, LEC, LCK, etc., or a former pro player from LCS Academy and reached Challenger in solo queue this season. They also have to be located in America and approved by the Champions Queue Council after thorough review. Players who meet these new requirements can submit an access request by reaching out to their local esports office. We also want to make one thing clear that has often been mentioned in the community. Playing in Champions Queue is not meant to be for content purposes. It is a high quality practice environment, and anyone who undermines this goal is not meant to be in Champions Queue. When Champions Queue Worlds is over, we'll be returning to the original access criteria as established back in February. He then goes on to say thank you to the community and says that they're excited, etc, etc. Do you think that these Champions Queue changes will fix the problems that Champions Queue currently faces? Let me know in the comments below and subscribe. Bye!